What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Early Edge NFL Prop Show. Very exciting day. I'm joined by none other than Dave Richard and PropStarz. It's our first prop show of the year. Dave, how you doing?
I'm doing all right, but I got to tell you something, Sia. I'd prefer to be called by my birth name. And my birth name is Uncle Dave.
Uncle Dave, cousin Sia, and we've got cousin PropStarz. Cousin PropStarz, are you there? How you doing today, buddy?
Gentlemen, what's good? It feels like a family reunion. I am so fired up. I wait year long to be on this show with my cousin and my uncle. So I'm fired up, guys. Let's get down to business.
My favorite degenerate nephews. I love you both so much. And if you're just watching us for the first time, we've been around for 5 years. This is year 5 of the NFL Player Prop Show. Yeah. Proppy and I have been on every single episode. Sia, you came along a little late, but we're still glad you're here because your information is outstanding. And we work really hard all week long to come up with our favorite props. You guys know me from Fantasy Football Today on CBS Sports. So fantasy's my main deal, but these two cross sections are really important. And so the information that I've got from fantasy research and all that, I put into this to help everybody out. And I'm excited for year number 5.
I'm so glad you said that because, Proppy, you know this as well. There's so much crossover with fantasy football. I do the Fantasy Football Today DFS show for CBS Sports with Mike McClure and Meg Schaub. There's so much crossover. So when I'm doing that show on Thursdays, I've got props in mind. And PropStarz, I want to ask you, before we get to plays, and we're going to get to favorite quarterback props for week 1, favorite running back props, wide receiver props, some miscellaneous, some Friday night stuff. Proppy, it's week 1. So I know you have a very distinct, and Dave, you're going to comment on this a little bit as well. I know you have a very distinct approach to entering a new season. So for those bettors that are in a hurry to get their bankroll going, how would you proceed, or how would you tell them to proceed?
Yeah, early on in the season, guys, is typically where you see the majority of my betting volume. Weeks 1 through 5, nearly 50% of the bets that I'm going to make over the course of the season will come in these early weeks. I think the books are playing catch up often. So there's going to be a lot of inefficient lines. When you're talking about player props, you're talking about an absolutely massive surface area. There are so many props on the board. It's just impossible for the books to be sharp across such a vast surface area. So there are going to be a lot of prop opportunities, as Uncle Dave and I like to call them, and you will see a lot of bets from both of us early on in the season.
It's true. The other coaching point that I would add, for lack of a better term, Sia, is I like to lean on the star players, the players who have been in the NFL for a while. Not every prop I'm going to give today necessarily follows that, but a lot of them do. I think it's important to go with guys that have a track record, guys you've heard of, guys you have certain expectations for, and then seeing the line from it, making a decision on those players, rather than fringe players who really haven't been in the NFL very long, maybe guys that are getting an opportunity for the first time in their lives to play pro football on a down-to-down basis. Those guys usually end up being very flighty, and you can lose a lot with those players. So I tend to stay with the big names.
Yeah, it's interesting. And we'll talk about it throughout. We've got an hour to talk about players. There's going to be some fringe players. There's going to be some go-to players, because ultimately we are trying to predict volume, Dave, or in PropStarz, or a lack of volume, right? And so that's where the props end up coming in. And so if you can have that anticipation of maybe even a fringe player that's going to get a certain volume or lack thereof, and I have a rushing prop that I want to run by both of you. It's my only play that I'm bringing to the show that I haven't officially made yet. And that's for later in the show, because it's a discussion point for you.
Okay.
And for PropStarz. Let's get to the bets, though. Let's get to the quarterback bets, because there's one that you have that I have a sort of a corollary bet for. And I want to have this discussion, and PropStarz, I want you to kind of rule on this as well. I know you have a quarterback lean, but I know you've got 2 official plays. Can you start off, Dave Richard, with C.J. Stroud?
C.J. Stroud, starting quarterback of the Texans. He's entering his 3rd NFL season, and I like the over on his completions. It's 20.5 completions at even money from our pals at BetMGM. Taking on the Rams, this is a defense that traditionally plays a lot of zone-heavy coverage. That means that they like to play off of the wide receivers. It makes it easier to complete passes, especially short throws. And I think we're going to see a lot of that from the Texans, given the state of their running game right now. We know that Houston doesn't have Joe Mixon. Mixon. They're going to start Nick Chubb. They've got Daria Gumbawale on passing downs. That's somebody who could catch some passes from C.J. Stroud. Dameon Pierce is there. Rookie Woody Marks is there. It's an interesting group, but it's not a group that I would expect the Texans are going to have a lot of success with against the Rams. And the Rams, that zone coverage, not necessarily with a stud player either in that secondary. Yeah. So I think there's going to be a lot of chances for Stroud to throw the football instead of hand off the football, and I'm looking for him to complete a lot of those short throws. I've leaned into this specific situation, a quarterback that doesn't have a great running game or has a running back that can catch the ball a lot against zone-heavy coverage, and the completions number comes in at a pretty high rate. So I feel really good about Stroud going over 20.5 completions on Sunday against the Rams.
PropStarz, I want to get your take to the following here, because I like the completions play, and I love what you said about the zone coverage, but I like his passing attempts prop as well, which for the record is 30.5 at some places, 31.5 in others. And it's largely, for me, it's largely because I think they're going to be pretty inefficient with the lack of an offensive line and a Rams defense that's pretty good. So while I think there's going to be a lot of attempts, I'm just not sure how many completions are going to be. I like yours, but I also like mine. Proppy, any thoughts on either of these plays?
Yeah, I actually prefer a volume-based approach here with you, Sia. I do think if we're going to lean into the specific game plan, we know the strength of the Rams' defense is their front seven, their ability to pressure the quarterback. That's going to force a lot of quick throws from C.J. Stroud in this revamped Texans offense. Also, this Texans offensive line has a lot of question marks. So how do you mitigate some of that pass rush? You get the ball out of C.J. Stroud's hands quickly. So I do think it could potentially lend to some additional passing volume from this Houston offense. Also, Rams are capable of pushing the Texans a bit here as well. So I think I'm with you, C. I have a slight lean more towards a volume-based approach rather than an efficiency-based line like completions.
But Dave, to your point, you're talking about the pass game, the short area pass game being an extension of a lack of a running game. So
right.
I completely understand the completions
sure.
portion of this as well. We got one more quarter. We have so many running back and wide receiver props that we're going to get to in the next couple of segments, but you've got one more official play on a quarterback, and it's J.J. McCarthy, and it's an under. Talk to me.
And what did I say when we first talked about what you should do in week one? Go with guys that have a track record. Here's literally a quarterback that hasn't played an NFL snap. Yeah. So here I'm kind of going against myself, but it's an under. I like the under on 31.5 pass attempts for J.J. McCarthy against the Bears. And look, it just makes sense that the Vikings would want to run the football when they can take pressure off of the quarterback because he's making his very first NFL start. So this isn't an overplay, it's an underplay. I don't think they're going to go into the game and say, all right, J.J. McCarthy, go ahead and cut it loose and throw 40 times in the game. It might happen, but for that to happen, the Bears would have to have some points on the board, and I think that that's just not really a scenario that I see playing out. Furthermore, this Vikings offensive line got a lot stronger. They want to run the football more. So not only do they have a quarterback that isn't very experienced, they've got a run game that they want to lean on. They've got the linemen that they want to lean on. And this Chicago defense is going to start playing more man coverage with Dennis Allen as their defensive coordinator. That's going to open up the door for J.J. McCarthy to run with the football, because if his receivers, and he doesn't have a lot of them right now because some of them are banged up, Jordan Addison is suspended, there's going to be opportunities where the Bears, with their cornerbacks, they've got good cornerbacks. They can cover those guys, but they either flush McCarthy out of the pocket or they just leave him alone for too long. And he says, I know what to do. McCarthy's a smart guy. He went to Michigan. He'll take off and run. That's not a pass attempt. That's a carry. So I think he goes under it in this game. I think the Vikings win, and you're going to see J.J. McCarthy under 31.5 pass attempts at -110 at BetMGM.
I like this play. Can I ask you guys, we got about 60 seconds left, and then we're going to go to some running back props where we've sort of flooded the market here. Yeah. J.J. McCarthy and the Minnesota Vikings, I think the variance on that team is pretty large. I think they could finish first in the NFC North, which would be a surprise to most. I think they could finish last. From a J.J. McCarthy plus Minnesota Vikings standpoint, give me like 10, 15 seconds on where you think they're gonna finish, and then Proppy, I'm going to ask you the same thing.
I don't think they make the playoffs, and it's a shame because they have a really good defense, and I like the offensive line that's there. It's really a byproduct of what division they're in, and you've got the Lions, you've got the Packers. I don't think the Bears are going to make a jump. I think the Vikings could be one of those few teams in the NFL that win 9 or 10 games and miss the playoffs.
Proppy, give me 15 seconds or less on how the Vikings measure up in the NFC North or in general.
I like their chances, frankly. I think the NFC is open. I think it's somewhat soft in comparison to the strength at the top of the AFC. If you have a coach who's able to coax the most out of a quarterback who's unproven, give me Kevin O'Connell. I look at the rest of the roster. I think it's a very balanced, well-built roster, offensively, defensively, special teams. So if he's able to muster even average or above average quarterback play from this team, I think they're a legitimate threat to win the NFC.
The NFC North is just going to be so interesting.
Absolutely.
So far, the show, pretty interesting, if I say so myself. I mean, I'm the host, so I kind of have to say that. But it's going to get even more aggressive because, PropStarz, you've got a lot of running back props coming up. I do. Dave, you do as well. Coming up next on The Early Edge, we break down the running back position, our favorite props for Week 1, right here on The Early Edge. We're back on The Early Edge here on CBS Sports Network. I'm joined by Dave Richard and PropStarz, and otherwise known as Alex Selznick. But we're just going to call him PropStarz, or yeah, I know. I've called him Alex before, and it's just been a weird.
Yeah, it feels weird. Proppy,
cousin,
Properoo.
Lil Geppetto, if you're an Early Edge fan, dating back 4 or 5 years, you know the Lil Geppetto reference.
Callback.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
That's a shout out to old Early Edge fans there. But PropStarz, let's get to running backs. We talked about some potentially like speculative positions, speculative running backs, rookies perhaps. You like one Trevion Henderson. Talk to me about the play on him.
Yeah, I'm going to speculate on a rookie here, gentlemen. Trevion Henderson of the New England Patriots, over 64.5 combined rushing and receiving yards. The Patriots selected Henderson with a 38th overall pick in the draft, and he just looks like a dynamic player that's going to hit the ground running. If preseason is any indication, his first touch was a 100-yard kickoff return. He's looked absolutely explosive and dynamic. Thought to be somewhat of a third down back coming into the league, but he has run exceptionally well through the tackles. All the reports out of New England are that he has been their best player basically since stepping on the field since day one. So I expect him to be the focal point of this New England offense. Obviously, you still have Ramondre Stevenson, but he's just a jag to me. He's just another guy. He hasn't really been very good in the NFL. I think Henderson is going to eat into his workload right away. I think he's going to be Drake May's 3-down back. I think he's going to be on the field for passing downs. He may cede some work when it comes to early down work, but his ability to make an impact in the passing game, which is why I love this combination line here. He's going to be just explosive, dynamic out of the backfield. I love what I've seen from Trevion Henderson. I think he has star written all over him. I think you will see him chunk big play after big play starting in week 1. I think before week 4 or 5, he's going to be there. He's going to force the Patriots' hand, and he'll become an every down starter. But even in a timeshare, which I expect him to be in, I think he's easily going to eclipse this combination line.
So one of the lines I was thinking about was Trevion Henderson. And this is for people that don't necessarily want to go with a combo line. And I love the line. I would take this for sure. But it's a big number, especially for a guy that's never played in the NFL before. What about his longest reception, over 11.5 yards? It's a little bit juicy. But Proppy talked about it, just the fact that he's such a good pass catcher out of the backfield. He's explosive. I looked this up. Last year at Ohio State, a third of his receptions went for 12 or more yards. So that's a pretty good side. And you only need one for this over to hit. I had the pleasure of watching him practice against the Commanders about a month ago, and he looked stellar on the field. He's easily their fastest player. We're going to be making a lot of over Trevion Henderson prop picks this year.
And I'm sure you noticed that the Washington Commanders look so good that they're probably going to win the Super Bowl.
I don't know if they're going to win the Super Bowl, but they're one of the teams that'll knock Minnesota from being a playoff team because their record will be better. They look good too, but Trevion Henderson, wow.
I heard him say they're definitely going to win the Super Bowl. Let's go to a couple of plays that I like in DFS you have for running back props. And Proppy, we're going to toggle back to you for your second RB play. But Jonathan Taylor, I think, is really interesting. And I think he's a guy that's getting slept on a little bit because he's not the sexy name that Bijan Robinson and some of these other guys are. Talk to me about your play on him.
I think he's going to go over 17.5 rush yards. It's a juicy line. It's minus 125. But I'm starting to become rush attempts. I said rushing yards.
Yeah.
I would take the rushing yards at minus 125, but the rushing attempts as well at minus 125. Thank you for catching me on that, Cousin Sia. Listen, 10 games with at least 18 attempts last year. Actually got 20 or more attempts out of the 14 that he played in. He left early in one of them. He also had 18 or more attempts in 2 games. Indianapolis lost by 6 or more points. They're taking on the Dolphins. This Dolphins defense, great up front. They've got an outstanding pass rush. Their linebackers are okay. The secondary, big questions. I do think that we're going to see the Colts try and not lean on Daniel Jones and lean on the guy who they know what they have in Jonathan Taylor, and he's going to get a lot of work. I don't know if they win the game, but I think they'll keep it competitive. I think Taylor gets a lot of work, and so I like this over for it.
Yeah, what I love, too, about this, PropStarz, is that there's not a lot of competition behind him. Like, we have a lot of running back props. So you just talked about Ramondre Stevenson, right, for Trevion Henderson. I might give out a play on J.K. Dobbins. Again, I say I might. We're going to bring it up, but obviously R.J. Harvey's behind him. There's just a lot of
I'm not sure R.J. Harvey's behind him. I think R.J. Harvey might be ahead of him.
So that's interesting. That's going to come up later in the show. We know who's listed first on the depth chart, though, right? We're comfortable with that.
Means nothing.
Okay.
Those depth charts mean nothing.
Even now?
Not even 13 years ago when Alfred Morris was 4th on the depth chart in Washington, and I still told people to make him a running back that you start in fantasy, and he went on to not win Rookie of the Year. That was his quarterback, but he had an amazing
Shout out to my friend RG3. That was an amazing season. It always comes back to Washington and the Commanders. Okay, fine. We'll talk about J.K. Dobbins later because I think that's a really interesting discussion point. And it's not an official play for me yet, so hold the phone on that. PropStarz, let's go back to you. Chuba Hubbard, talk to me.
Yeah, Chuba Hubbard. I like his rushing attempts, guys. I was surprised to see this line as low as 13.5 for Chuba, who's quietly been one of the better running backs in the NFL over the past 2 seasons. He was a recipient of a very rare mid-season contract extension last year, and he's been a workhorse for Carolina. He's certainly the centerpiece of that offense. Yes, they did bring in some competition for Hubbard, but I think they brought in some depth for Chuba Hubbard. Enrico Dowdle here and Travis Etienne. Trevor Etienne, who I think is going to make an impact on third down. I don't think they're necessarily going to take a lot of that early down work from Chuba Hubbard, who is going to be the engine of this Carolina offense. I also like this matchup against Jacksonville. Jacksonville was not good defensively last year. Did not see them make a ton of improvements in the offseason. I think Carolina is going to be able to hang in this game. Interestingly enough, Chuba Hubbard averaged 22.5 rushing attempts per game in the 4 Carolina victories last year. So when Carolina has a lead or they're in a positive or even a neutral game script, they're going to run the football. The Panthers also upgraded the interior of their offensive line. So I think Chuba Hubbard in most game scenarios is going to see 15 to 17 rushing attempts in week 1. So love this line for Chuba Hubbard, who I think is getting a bit of a raw deal. I think these guys that have been brought in are not going to necessarily make the impact that the odds makers and some of the betting public believe they are going to be.
PropStarz, quick follow-up. It's minus 128, like you said, at 13.5. Some markets have it up to 14.5 at even money. Which of those would you prefer if both options were available?
Big difference between 13.5 and 14.5 here. I project him at 16 carries, so I'm more comfortable taking the juice, even though it is a steeper price here, and taking the 13.5. If you were going to take the 14.5, I would scale down to maybe a half unit.
Okay. I'm going to give out my play real quick because I want to circle back to James Conner. Bucky Irving, speaking of rushing attempts, PropStarz, Bucky Irving was a guy that I was going to take over 14.5 rush attempts. But when I did the math on what I think his yards per carry is going to be against, in my opinion, a bad front seven for the Atlanta Falcons, I see really, even with 12 or 13 carries, him getting over 66.5 rushing yards. And that line, by the way, is available at BetMGM. Most books had this around 70.5. I will say this, I would probably play it as high as 69.5, but long story short, I really like Bucky Irving this year. I've talked about it a lot on CBS Sports Network, on HQ, on the early edge, but the long and short of it is, after the Week 11 bye, this guy was absolutely on fire. His yards per carry was great. He was super efficient. Yards before contact, thanks to the offensive line, was great. Yards after contact was great. And again, against this Atlanta defense, I think Tampa's going to defer to the run quite a bit. I think he probably gets in that 70 to 80 range. I think he probably gets to 15 rush attempts, but I'd rather take the yards over the attempts. Give me Bucky Irving. Your thoughts, Dave?
I saw him practice too with the Bucs against the Titans. He looks very good. That whole offense looks good. The Bucs are my Super Bowl pick.
Wow. Over the Commanders. You just said the Commanders.
I said they were going to make the playoffs. You're not a good listener.
You said the Super Bowl.
I didn't say the Super Bowl.
Yeah, you definitely said the Super Bowl.
I never said the Super Bowl.
You said they were going to win 2 Super Bowls in a row. Super Bowl? I can have the court reporter read back what he said.
That I said the Super Bowl. There's no way I said the Super Bowl. We got to move on.
That was a bit of a Few Good Men reference for everybody, but thanks for playing. Okay, we got to get to more picks. I know you have a James Conner pick that we're waiting on. More running back picks, of course, wide receiver, tight end, pass catcher picks coming up as well right here on the Early Edge.
Did I really?
We continue with the running backs before we get to some pass catchers. I'm with Alex Selznick. Yep, still sounds weird. I'm with PropStarz and Uncle Dave. Dave, talk to me. I wanted to get to James Conner before the break, but we're here. Talk to me about James Conner, another rushing attempts prop.
One of my absolute favorite props of the week. It's James Conner over 16.5 rush attempts at plus 102, so a little bit of money, odds in our favor. You got to love that. And here's the thing about it. Over in 8 of 13 games last year when he played at least 47% of the snaps. So you know that he's a big part of what the Arizona Cardinals want to do. And a lot of those 8 games where Arizona wins, 5 of them were. Last year, New Orleans was the pits against the run. I didn't see them make any big changes this offseason to make it a better run defense. It definitely gives off the vibe in New Orleans that they're tanking for one of the quarterbacks in the 2026. They're starting Spencer Rattler. They drafted Tyler Shuck. These are not great quarterback options. And the defense kind of reflects that because they didn't do a lot to really improve that defense. They gave up almost 5 yards per carry last year. And I'm not really worried about Trey Benson coming in and making this an even split backfield. I still think James Conner is their guy in Arizona. So a lot of opportunities. This is a game that the Cardinals really can make a statement in to say that they're a better team. That's a team that improved their defense. And I could see them, at least their front seven, they improved. This is a team that I think is trying to contend for a playoff spot. They can lean on their running back, and that's James Conner going over 16.5 rush attempts.
So a couple things. I like this play a lot. I don't know what his yardage is, but I'm pretty sure I'm going to like that. I didn't look at his yardage. I love him in DFS. We talked about it on the Fantasy Football Today DFS show. I think James Conner's in a smash. I mean, this run defense for New Orleans is just not good.
It's veteran. They've got a lot of guys who can still be good. I mean, Demario Davis at linebacker is good, and obviously Cam Jordan is a part of that defense and so on, but it's not, they didn't improve it. It's a year older.
Yeah.
And it just makes me nervous. Whereas the Cardinals, bringing back 4 of their 5 starters on the offensive line, they think they've learned a thing or two about how Kyler Murray can operate. It's a good week to take pressure off of Kyler Murray and lean into Conner.
And to the extent that Trey Benson impacts this running game, I don't think it's week 1. I think it's further down the line in the season. I think he is going to get some run. James Conner is 30 years old. They might want to preserve him a little bit. But I think week 1, this is a smash spot for James Conner. All right, let's talk about James Conner, kind of a star. Let's talk about a superstar. PropStarz, you're looking at Christian McCaffrey.
Yeah, we're fading Christian McCaffrey, guys. I'm going to go under on his combined rushing and receiving line, under 112.5 combined rushing and receiving yards. All the reports about Christian McCaffrey up until about 24 to 48 hours ago had been glowing until he popped up on the injury report with a calf injury. And if we know Christian McCaffrey, he's entering his 9th NFL season. Durability concerns have been a constant theme for McCaffrey here. And this is just a big combination line for week one. I doubt San Francisco wants to see McCaffrey handle 25 touches at any point this season, certainly not right out the gate. And as far as a matchup is concerned, this Seahawks defense over the second half of the season, this was a top 5 defensive unit, and I think they improved in the offseason as well. Year 2 going into a Mike McDonald's cutting edge scheme here. I love this Seattle defense. I think this potentially is another top 5 unit. So I think it's a really difficult matchup for Christian McCaffrey, who may be operating at less than 100%. I don't think he's going to handle a massive workload week one either. This just looks like a really good spot to fade him, in my opinion. So let's go under 112 combined rushing and receiving yards. I'd play this one down to 107 yards.
Wow. Very interesting. I think yards in general in this game, Dave, I think they're going to be at a premium. I think both these, even though the San Francisco defense is not super formidable right now, we don't know what they are. I noticed the total. I was talking about on the Early Edge a couple of weeks ago, PropStarz. You might have been on that show. It was 45.5, and I was like, I really like the under here. And now it's 43.5. So now I don't love it so much because it's under that key number of 44. But the first half under 21.5, I kind of like that. I do think McCaffrey, I don't know how much work he's going to get. I do think he's going to be limited. I look at guys like JSN in that game. Guys like that intrigue me in that game. Kenneth Walker, you mentioned as well. Let's move along, though, because you've got one more running back prop, and it's in a game, we talk about points and yards being at a premium, not so much in Cleveland facing Cincinnati. You like something on Chase Brown.
I do like Chase Brown to have a bunch of rush attempts in the game against the Cleveland Browns. Let's say over 16.5 at even money, plus 100. That's not a bad thing ever. And we know that Cincinnati has had 17 or more running back runs in 5 of their past 5 against the Cleveland Browns. That includes 4 wins. And I remember last year, Chase Brown got off to a slow start. He wasn't the lead guy for the Bengals. And then he started to eventually get into it a little bit more, and they made him the feature back. And by the time he did, 5 of 8 games where he was getting over this mark pretty easily. I'm not sure if the Browns are going to compete to the same level as Cincinnati when it comes to putting points on the board. So this one is a fairly easy call for me to have Chase Brown go over 16.5 rush attempts.
All right. PropStarz, any thoughts on this one? Chase Brown, another guy that we talked about a lot on the DFS show. He seems like one of the most popular players on the slate against this Cleveland defense. I think the beauty of Chase Brown, again, it's one of those situations, PropStarz, where who's backing him up? This is not exactly a committee backfield.
Yeah, I would agree with Chase Brown. We're looking at a guy, who may not be the most talented running back, but if we're talking about the situation he's in, it's certainly an elite situation. And you mentioned the lack of depth behind him as well. Samaj P. Ryan, not a guy that's really going to do much besides maybe spell him on third down. So Chase Brown is in an elite situation. I think he's going to be a big-time producer just as a byproduct of being in that Cincinnati offense, having Joe Burrow and those elite weapons, the pass catchers, is really going to make him formidable here.
Okay, so here's what I'm going to do. I want to go to a break soon, but I want to get your opinion on the J.K. Dobbins thing. I want to just give out the play. This is the only play that I haven't actually put on SportsLine yet. That's how we reserved it. All the other plays I've given out on the show are already on SportsLine, so check that out. But it's over 11.5 rush attempts for J.K. Dobbins. And here's the thought process here. I know 11.5 sounds like a lot, and I know he didn't take a preseason snap. He was named the starter. I don't think they trust R.J. Harvey yet. And so my thought here is that they're going to have 26, 27 carries in the game, just like they have the last 2 years. It's been about 26 and 26 over the last 2. And they're in a majorly positive game script. I think they're going to win by 10 or more. So I just feel like if you're going to feed Dobbins, it's going to be early. I could see 12 or 13 carries, but this is plus 112. I mean, obviously the market agrees with you, Dave, that this is looking like 10 or 11 tops for J.K. Dobbins. I'll note that R.J. Harvey is at 8.5. Your thoughts, Dave, and then PropStarz, and then I want to go to a break so we can get to the pass catchers.
This is my feeling and my conjecture. It's not with inside knowledge on the Denver Broncos. I see that single-digit number for R.J. Harvey, and I want to run to it and hug it because that seems like an over that I would love to take. If it's going to be a blowout, and I agree with you, I think the Broncos win this one going away. Tennessee's offense just isn't in a great place to compete with Denver, especially in that defense on the road. Cam Ward's first NFL start. I love Cam Ward, but this is not the best chance for him to go out and play. If it's going to be a blowout, why would Sean Payton put his veteran running back with an injury track record on the field in meaningless playing time when he's got the rookie running back to get him a little bit of experience and give him maybe the opportunity to go and have a good game for himself as well. I think he's the faster player between the two of them right now. Maybe they work a little bit more in tandem than I would expect them to, say, a month from now. But I think that there's a real opportunity for R.J. Harvey to have a nice game here against Tennessee.
So the only comment, and PropStarz, I'm going to let you chime in, the only comment I'd have to that is that there's going to be an obvious changing of the guard. There's draft capital in R.J. Harvey. It's just not going to happen week 1. And I like the idea of Sean Payton setting a tone with the veteran and giving him 12, 13 carries in a spot where they're going to be winning comfortably. PropStarz, go ahead. Am I way off here? The market certainly likes what Dave has to say.
I think you're off here, Sia. I think if we look at when J.K. Dobbins was signed, the fact that he was not signed prior to the draft tells me he was not a big part of the offseason plans for Denver. I do think R.J. Harvey is going to get the lion's share of the carries. I think Dobbins is more of a depth signing, so I think Dobbins should have the 11.5 line. Or excuse me, I think Harvey should have the double-digit 11.5 line here. I think Dobbins is going to be more of a backup.
This is a great moment to point out that you gave a great case for one side of a bet. Alex and I can't believe I call him that, but we just came up with the other side of the bet. Everybody got to hear both sides. Part of this show is just to give you guys opinions on what we like. It's player props. I want you guys to just be a little bit selective about what you take, because if you're going to bet everything that we say on the show, the odds of you winning a lot of money every week are going to go down. I'm just saying it. Right. And here we just gave two sides to the same bet. You can't pick one side just because we all agree. We disagree on this one. So it's a reminder to everybody out there, be selective with your bets. When you're convinced, when you're compelled that a bet sounds good, take it. But other than that, there's nothing wrong with sitting it out.
One thing we pride ourselves on this show, but also on the Early Edge Morning Show and the network show, is giving the analysis behind the bet. And if you don't like the analysis, that's great. Just you don't make the bet.
No one's going to make you.
Yeah, no one's going to make you make the bet. And I love having the back and forth. I love having the disagreement because we get to present both sides to the jury. And the jury, of course, is you viewers at home. And you, jury, get to listen to some wide receiver and tight end props coming up next. We got a lot to get through in the next segment. We're going to try to pull it off with PropStarz, with Uncle Dave, and with myself right here on the Early Edge. We're back on the Early Edge, and it's time to talk about some receivers. And Dave, PropStarz, this is going to be more of a rapid-fire segment because we have 7 bets to get through in about 7 minutes. So let me get started with a couple of picks. This is the first prop I put in on SportsLine. I'm very proud of it. It might crash and burn, but Xavier Legette is my play. It's over 34.5 receiving yards. This has since moved to 36.5, 38.5 in some places. I certainly like it, probably at both of those numbers. Hopefully you can grab the 36.5. But the long and short of it is when Jalen Coker got hurt, and when Adam Thielen got dealt, it just seemed to me that in a probable negative game script, in a high-scoring game, the total 46.5 against the Jacksonville Jaguars, who's a leaky secondary for sure, Xavier Legette is one of these plays that could easily hit the over 34.5. More importantly, because we love ladder plays, he could potentially, he's so athletic, I think he can get behind the defense. We saw how Bryce Young matured in the second half of last season. I think you could ladder this up 40, 50, 60, 70. Again, we know Ted McMillan is the guy there, but give me Xavier Legette over 34.5 receiving yards. We got this over at SportsLine at -114. Next one, you might like this. We talked about Spencer Rattler. Give me Rashid Shaheed over 38.5 receiving yards. Another play that I think you can ladder. Rashid Shaheed, we know, is a long play threat, but there's a buzz from Kellen Moore's camp that maybe he's going to be a short play, a short area guy as well. Clearly the wide receiver, too, on this team. And this, again, is a very negative game script. Yes, it's Spencer Rattler. Yes, his yardage for Spencer Rattler's pass yards is 196.5, pretty pedestrian, but it was 186.5 last week. So I'm just saying, like, the market is appreciating the fact that Spencer Rattler in a negative game script might be able, with his big arm, might be able to unload it to guys like Shaheed, maybe Johnson, and Chris Olave. Those are my 2 wide receiver picks. Bit of rapid fire. You have a receiver pick on the other receiver for the Saints.
I do. It's Chris Olave, over 48.5 receiving yards, -115 from our pals at BetMGM. And I just love the situation that the Saints are putting him in. They're using him all across the formation, so he's not going to be out wide all the time. We know he's a very talented wide receiver. We will see him in the slot as a primary target of Spencer Rattler. And Olave didn't just have 50-plus yards last year in his games. but he had over 80 yards in 4 of his 6 games when he played at least 70% of the snaps. Now, we talked about the Cardinals earlier. This kind of correlates with James Conner a little bit because Conner can run the ball. Cardinals build a lead. It's the secondary of that Arizona defense that I think the Saints can and will have success against. And as for Spencer Rattler, because you bring it up and everybody gets a chill down their spine when they think about backing a wide receiver that's catching passes from Spencer Rattler. He had at least one teammate in all but one of his games last year have 50-plus yards from him. So I think that there's a real good opportunity for Olave, who's fresh, healthy, ready to go in an offense that's schemed nicely from Kellen Moore to hit 50 yards, 60 yards, 70 yards. I like the idea of laddering Olave because he's got that high upside. But as far as this line, 48.5, love the over. It's my favorite play of the week.
Ooh, okay. And we're going to give out our favorite plays of the week in the
You'll
final
hear this one
segment.
again.
Yeah, we'll go to Chris Olave again. Proppy, you were on the Early Edge yesterday, the morning show. Of course, you can find that on the SportsLine YouTube channel every Monday through Friday at 10 o'clock. And you gave out the following play. But before you give it out, and it's on Xavier Worthy, of course, let's go rapid fire. So I'm going to tee you up on each of these 4 picks that you have. Maybe give me 30 seconds or less on each one. And you're starting with Friday night, tonight, Xavier Worthy.
Yeah, let's go over 61.5 receiving yards. Xavier Worthy has a real opportunity with Rashee Rice set to be suspended for the first 6 games of the season. Worthy should function as that number 1 option for Patrick Mahomes. I was very impressed with how he looked in his rookie season, particularly down the stretch. Things started clicking for him. I expect a big week 1 performance, and I expect him to take a major step forward in his second season.
Certainly seems to be the major player in that offense, at least at the receiver position, until Rashee Rice comes back. Let's go to Sam Laporta.
Yeah, I'd like him to go over just 36.5 receiving yards for Laporta, who had a disappointing sophomore campaign. But I think a lot of that can be attributed to a variety of ailments and injuries he dealt with. After week 14, Sam Laporta, when he finally got healthy, really came on strong at the end of the season and then in the playoffs as well. We know Jared Goff loves to target the tight end. If Micah Parsons is on the edge, he's going to have to get rid of the ball quickly. I think Sam Laporta is a big beneficiary of that.
All right, let's move to, when we think of the Las Vegas Raiders, we think of the receiver position, I think a lot of people at home are like, well, I can think of Jacoby Myers and Brock Bowers, who's a tight end, but that's kind of it. Maybe that's where we're going here, Alex, because you like Jacoby Myers.
I do. After Amari Cooper retired, there was not a lot of depth behind Jacoby Myers at wide receiver. I love his chances of going over just 48.5 receiving yards here. I think there's an upgrade at quarterback with Geno Smith, with the coordinator Chip Kelly, with Pete Carroll. Been very impressed with Jacoby Myers, who had a fantastic season last year, eclipsed this in 12 of his 15 appearances. I think he hits the ground running. I would set this line at 55.5.
PropStarz, you are somehow doing really well with this 30 seconds or less thing, which is really not your thing, right? Because you have so much detail to give out, but you got one left. Brian Thomas Jr. I think everybody loves Brian Thomas Jr. You like him week 1.
Panthers aren't going to like him week 1.
No.
How can you not like Brian Thomas Jr. coming off of just a sensational rookie season, one of the best seasons by a rookie wide receiver in NFL history, and that was with Trevor Lawrence only appearing in 10 games. Now we enter year 2. Liam Cohen as the head coach of Jacksonville. He's going to move Brian Thomas all over the formation. I love his chances of having an absolutely monster week 1 performance against the Carolina Panthers, who were absolutely putrid against the pass, gave up a ton of explosive plays downfield last season. I don't see any significant upgrades in that secondary. Frankly, I don't think anyone's capable of slowing Brian Thomas Jr. down either. I think he hits the ground running week 1. I like laddering this play. I think he goes for at least triple digits.
Would you say he could go nuclear, sir?
I would say he could even go thermonuclear, sir. So I'll be sprinkling on some alt lines for Brian Thomas Jr. over 100 yards, which you can find around plus 200, over 110, which creeps all the way up to plus 300, even a little bit over 125, which you can get in that plus 450 range.
2 things. Number 1, Panthers lost one of their backup cornerbacks, Damari Mathis. He's done for the season. He tore his ACL in practice. Number 2, I watched BTJ practice this training camp. And he really didn't step up for Jacksonville until he had competition when he played against the Dolphins in a joint practice. And that's when he was lights out. When the lights are on and there's some serious competition on the field, BTJ steps up. So I love where you're coming from on that one, Proper Roo.
My favorite stack in Fantasy Football Today DFS yesterday was Trevor Lawrence, who I'm not big on Trevor Lawrence at all. I don't think he's
that's going to be the guy that holds back BTJ if anybody does.
5,300 in DFS. I have him attached to Brian Thomas Jr., so I absolutely love what everybody is talking about here. And I saw you vigorously nodding when Jacoby Myers' prop was being given out as well. We're going to get to our favorite props in the next segment. We're going to touch on some Friday night plays as well. I've got a few that I want to discuss with you all, but we've got our favorite props. We're going to wrap things up, maybe talk some Friday night lights coming up next right here on The Early Edge. We're back on The Early Edge, and it's time to discuss some of our favorite props, maybe a little bit of discussion with Friday night KC, Los Angeles. But what you all did last year was, instead of discussing your favorite prop, you discussed the favorite prop that you heard from somebody else. So, Dave, I'm going to start with you. A prop that you heard from PropStarz or myself that you're inclined to bet.
I can't help myself but go with Brian Thomas Jr. over 73.5 receiving yards. He's really just a special wide receiver. The track record isn't long. He's only in his second year, but he's already ascended to being one of the best receivers in the NFL.
PropStarz?
I'm going to go with your Bucky Irving selection, Sia. I absolutely love Bucky Irving. Speaking of an ascending second-year player, love what I saw last year from Bucky Irving. I think we go into year two with this Tampa Bay line, even without Tristan Wirfs in week one. I think there's enough continuity on that offensive line. All the reports about Bucky Irving has been absolutely fantastic. He is not resting on his laurels. I think he has a big week one performance against a very vulnerable Atlanta rush defense here. This was a prop I gave a long look to, and I'm going to bet myself as well.
All right. I love that. I love all things Bucky Irving, maybe to get in the end zone as well. I think my favorite is probably the Hubbard play over 13.5 rush attempts. I really like your James Conner play as well. For me, I think I want to transition that into yards as opposed to attempts because I think he'll get some chunk yards. I also like your, sorry, it's three. I'm giving out three. I don't care.
You're supposed to pick one.
I'm the host. I'm making up my rules as I go. Your CJ Stroud play I like a lot, but I think I'm also going to bet the attempts and the completion. So I
think they're either both going to hit or they're both, never mind, they're both going to hit.
They're both going to hit. Let's have some confidence. Any confidence in tonight's game? I mean, I know you don't have an official play on tonight's game. PropStarz, you like the Xavier Worthy play. Let me throw something out at you. Ladd McConkey, I don't so much like his yardage at 73.5. I think that's a touch high. We know Kansas City can limit wide receiver ones, but I do like his receptions over 5.5 at -128. Oh, by the way, I also like the KC, KC -3, but I think I like the under better of 46.5, hoping it ticks up to 47 before I actually bet it. PropStarz, any reaction to that? Because I know people are watching. Maybe they want to play something on tonight's game.
Love me some Ladd McConkey. I do want to see what Keenan Allen looks like in this offense. It's still a Greg Roman offense with an upgraded running back room. I don't know how much passing volume we'll see, but if anyone can push him, it's obviously Patrick Mahomes and Kansas City here. So I thought Ladd McConkey was absolutely fantastic down the stretch. He was an absolute target monster. He excelled in all three levels of the field as well. Short, intermediate, and he was even getting open and drawing targets deep down the field, which isn't something you saw a lot at Georgia. So I love Ladd McConkey. I think he continues to function as that engine of that Charger offense, and I could see him having a big week one performance.
Dave, any thoughts?
Omarion Hampton is the new rookie running back for the Chargers, and he's fantastic. I think he can end up, I think he's already going to be like the 1A back. We know Najee Harris barely practiced leading up to the season, and now we don't know just how much work he's going to get. I think it's the perfect opportunity for Hampton to get a lot of work against Kansas City. It's 48.5 yards for the rushing over.
Yeah.
It's worth a sprinkle at least to put on Hampton.
Pretty formidable Kansas City rush defense. But,
it is.
But 48.5 is a nice. Yeah,
it's
exactly.
not 68.5.
Speaking of 48.5, the total's 46.5. You guys agree? It seems to me that you all agree that we're going to be chewing up some clock on both sides. Kansas City, a lot of completions for Mahomes, but that's usually in the short area passing game where the clock is going to continue to run. PropStarz, any thoughts on that under if it's 46.5, close to 47?
The Chargers are definitely a willing dance party when we're talking about the unders, but I don't think we're going to see the same Chiefs offense that we saw last season. Even with Rashee Rice on the shelf, I think we see an uptick in passing volume from this Kansas City offense. I think we see an increase in efficiency as well. And I think we see Patrick Mahomes open things up and attack downfield. You have Marquise Hollywood Brown, you have Xavier Worthy, and you still have Travis Kelce. And I still view Patrick Mahomes as an elite talent. So I think this Kansas City offense is going to open things up more. I'm staying away from the under one.
All right, we got to say goodbye to everybody, and there's only one way to do it. Our guy EC, a big part of this show. On the count of three, gentlemen, 1, 2, 3. Let's hit it big!
Let's hit it big!
All right, we'll see you next Friday on the Early Edge NFL Prop Show. Have a great weekend, everybody.